Marmeladov stopped again in violent excitement. At that moment a whole party of revelers already drunk came in from the street, and the sounds of a hired concertina and the cracked piping voice of a child of 7 singing "The Hamlet" were heard in the entry. The room was filled with noise. The tavern-keeper and the boys were busy with the newcomers. Marmeladov, paying no attention to the new arrivals, continued his story. He appeared by now to be extremely weak, but as he became more and more drunk, he became more and more talkative. The recollection of his recent success in getting the situation seemed to revive him, and was positively reflected in a sort of radiance on his face. Raskolnikov listened attentively. "That was 5 weeks ago, sir." "Yes. As soon as Katerina Ivanovna and Sonia heard of it, mercy on us, it was as though I stepped into the kingdom of heaven. It used to be, you can lie like a beast, nothing but abuse. Now they were walking on tiptoe, hushing the children. Semyon Zaharovitch is tired with his work at the office. He is resting. Shush. They made me coffee before I went to work and boiled cream for me. They began to get real cream for me, do you hear that? And how they managed to get together the money for a decent outfit. 11 rubles 50 kopecks, I can't guess. Boots, cotton shirt fronts, most magnificent, a uniform. They got up all in splendid style for 11 rubles and a half. The first morning I came back from the office I found Katerina Ivanovna had cooked 2 courses for dinner. Soup and salt meat with horseradish, which we had never dreamed of till then. She has not any dresses, none at all, but she got herself up as though she were going on a visit, and not that she'd say anything to do it with, not that she'd anything to do it with, she smartened herself up with nothing at all. She'd done her hair nicely, put on a clean collar of some sort, cuffs, and there she was, quite a different person. She was younger and better looking. Sonia, my little darling, had only helped with money for the time, she said. It won't do for me to come and see you too often. After dark, maybe, when no one can see. Do you hear? Do you hear? I lay down for a nap after dinner, and what do you think? Though Katerina Ivanovna had quarreled to the last degree with our landlady Amalia Fyodorovna only a week before, she could not resist then asking her into coffee. For 2 hours they were sitting, whispering together. Semyon Zaharovitch is in the service again now, and receiving a salary, says she, and he went himself to His Excellency, and His Excellency himself came out to him, made all the others wait, and led Semyon Zaharovitch by the hand before everybody into his study. Do you hear? Do you hear? To be sure, says he. Semyon Zaharovitch, remembering your past services, says he, and in spite of your propensity to that foolish weakness, since you promise now, and since moreover we've got on badly without you, do you hear? Do you hear? And so, says he, I rely now on your word as a gentleman. And all that, let me tell you, she has simply made up for herself, and not simply out of wantonness, for the sake of bragging. No, she believes it all herself. She amuses herself with her own fancies. Upon my word she does. And I don't blame her for it, no, I don't blame her. 6 days ago, when I brought her my first earnings in full, 23 rubles 40 kopecks altogether, she called me her poppet. Poppet, said she, my little poppet. And when we were by ourselves, you understand? You would not think me a beauty, you would not think much of me as a husband, would you? Well, she pinched my cheek. My little poppet, said she. Marmeladov broke off, tried to smile, but suddenly his chin began to twitch. He controlled himself, however. The tavern, the degraded appearance of the man, the 5 nights in the hay barge, and the pot of spirits, and yet this poignant love for his wife and children bewildered his listener. Raskolnikov listened intently, but with a sick sensation. He felt vexed that he had come here. Honored sir, cried Marmeladov, recovering himself. Oh, sir, perhaps all this seems a laughing matter to you, as it does to others, and perhaps I am only worrying you with the stupidity of all the trivial details of my home life, but it is not a laughing matter to me, for I can feel it all. And the whole of that heavenly day of my life and the whole of that evening I passed in fleeting dreams of how I would arrange it all, and how I would dress all the children, and how I should give her rest, and how I should rescue my own daughter from dishonor and restore her to the bosom of her family, and a great deal more. Quite excusable, sir. Well then, sir, Marmeladov suddenly gave a sort of start, raised his head and gazed intently at his listener. Well, on the very next day after all those dreams, that is to say, exactly 5 days ago, in the evening, by a cunning trick, like a thief in the night, I stole from Katerina Ivanovna the key of her box, took out what was left of my earnings, how much it was I have forgotten, and now look at me, all of you. It's the 5th day since I left home, and they are looking for me there, and it's the end of my employment, and my uniform is lying in a tavern on the Egyptian bridge. I exchanged it for the garments I have on, and it's the end of everything." Marmeladov struck his forehead with his fist, clenched his teeth, closed his eyes, and leaned heavily with his elbow on the table. But a minute later his face suddenly changed, and with a certain assumed slyness and an affectation of bravado, he glanced at Raskolnikov, laughed, and said, This morning I went to see Sonia. I went to ask her for a pick-me-up." "He he he! You don't say she gave it to you!" cried one of the newcomers. He shouted the words and went off into a guffaw. "This very quart was brought with her money," Marmeladov declared, addressing himself exclusively to Raskolnikov. 30 kopecks she gave me with her own hands, her last, all she had, as I saw. She said nothing, she only looked at me without a word. Not on earth, but up yonder. They grieve over men, they weep, but they don't blame them. They don't blame them. But it hurts more when they don't blame. 30 kopecks, yes, and maybe she needs them now, eh? What do you think, my dear sir? For now she's got to keep up her appearance. It costs money, that smartness, that special smartness, you know. Do you understand? And there's pomatum, too, you see. She must have things. Petticoats. Starched ones. Shoes, too. Real jaunty ones to show off her foot when she has to step over a puddle. Do you understand, sir? Do you understand what all that smartness means? And here I, her own father, here I took 30 kopecks of that money for a drink. And I am drinking it. And I've already drunk it. Come, who will have pity on a man like me, eh? Are you sorry for me, sir, or not? Tell me, sir, are you sorry or not? He would have filled his glass, but there was no drink left. The pot was empty. "What are you to be pitied for?" shouted the tavern keeper, who was again near them. Shouts of laughter and even oaths followed. The laughter and the oaths came from those who were listening and also from those who had heard nothing, but were simply looking at the figure of the discharged government clerk. "To be pitied? Why am I to be pitied?" Marmeladov suddenly declaimed, standing up with his arms outstretched as though he had been only waiting for that question. "Why am I to be pitied, you say? Yes, there's nothing to pity me for. I ought to be crucified. Crucified on a cross, not pitied. Crucify me. Oh, judge, crucify me, but pity me. And then I will go out of myself to be crucified, for it's not merrymaking I seek, but tears and tribulation. Do you suppose, you that sell, that this pint of yours has been sweet to me? It was tribulation I sought at the bottom of it, tears and tribulation, and have found it, and I have tasted it. But he will pity us who has pity on all men, who has understood all men and all things. He is the one. He too is the judge. He will come in that day, and he will ask, Where is the daughter who gave herself for her cross, consumptive stepmother and for the little children of another? Where is the daughter who had pity on the filthy drunkard, her earthly father, undismayed by his beastliness? And he will say, Come to me, I have already forgiven thee once. I have forgiven thee once. Thy sins which are many are forgiven thee, for thou hast loved much. And he will forgive my Sonia, he will forgive, I know it. I felt it in my heart when I was with her just now. And he will judge and will forgive all, the good and the evil, the wise and the meek. And when he is done with all of them, then he will summon us. You too come forth, he will say. Come forth, ye drunkards, come forth, ye weak ones, come forth, ye children of shame. And we shall all come forth without shame, and shall stand before him. And he will say unto us, Ye are swine, made in the image of the beast and with his mark, but come ye also. And the wise ones and those of understanding will say, O Lord, why dost thou receive these men? And he will say, This is why I receive them, O ye wise, this is why I receive them, O ye of understanding, that not one of them believed himself to be worthy of this. And he will hold out his hands to us, and we shall fall down before him, and we shall weep, and we shall understand all things. Then we shall understand all, and all will understand. Katerina Ivanovna, even she will understand. Lord, thy kingdom come! And he sank down on the bench exhausted and helpless, looking at no one, apparently oblivious of his surroundings, and plunged in deep thought. His words had created a certain impression. There was a moment of silence, but soon laughter and oaths were heard again. That's his notion. Talked himself silly. That's his notion? A fine clerk he is. And so on, and so on.